Good afternoon, everyone. Hurricane Dorian's power has arrived in North Carolina with wind, rain, and tornadoes lashing our state. We are feeling the storm's force, but it has only started. We have a long night ahead of us. Everyone needs to stay in a safe place and off the roads until the storm passes. Earlier today, our southeastern coastal counties started to experience the storm's impact with destructive tornadoes, heavy rains, damaging winds, and power outages. Parts of New Hanover County near Wilmington have seen 9 inches of rain already in a short period of time. This has contributed to at least 14 road closures in that area due to flooding and downed trees. Conditions will continue to worsen today and throughout the night. Tornadoes have touched down today in areas including Brunswick, Lenoir, Wayne, and Craven counties, and of course at Emerald Isle. Please stay tuned to your local media for tornado warnings and watches. The risk for dangerous flash flooding continues, and major river flooding is forecast along the northeast Cape Fear River near Burgaw. If your area is feeling the impacts of Dorian, stay home and safe. Don't drive through standing or moving water. If the road is covered with water, turn around. Don't risk your life or the lives of first responders. I've now activated 527 North Carolina National Guard soldiers, and we have begun receiving additional aircraft and swift water rescue teams from other states. Many communities are enforcing curfews tonight. Please listen to your local officials for specifics. We have 68 shelters up and running across the state with more than 2,200 occupants at this time. More will open as needed more will open as the need arises. I visited a state shelter in Durham today where some families had evacuated to escape the storm. There's so many dedicated workers and volunteers from many agencies that are working together, and we are grateful for their help. Food and water supplies are available and ready to be distributed when needed. For shelter, food, or non-emergency information assistance, dial 211. For people hard of hearing, please dial 888-892-1162 to reach someone to assist you. To help safely wait out this storm, I ask you to remember these tips. Of course, don't drive over roads covered with water. Turn around at barriers. Stay indoors and away from windows, and close your storm shutters if you have them. Never use a generator indoors. Deadly levels of carbon monoxide can build up quickly. Stay alert and informed, and use a radio or another device for weather warnings. You can stay informed by visiting readync.org for emergency information or drivenc.gov for road conditions. And if you want to donate your time or financial assistance, please go to nc.gov/donate. And as always, we're grateful to our utilities, Duke Energy, Dominion, Electricities, and the co-ops for their hard work in getting people's power back on. Our teams at the State Emergency Operations Center and those staged here today will help where they are needed most. And they are ready to move into action when needed with response and recovery with Hurricane Dorian. I have leaders here to talk to you. This afternoon we have Emergency Management Director Mike Sprayberry, Public Safety Secretary Eric Hooks, our Department of Transportation Chief Engineer Tim Little, North Carolina National Guard General Jim Ernst, State Highway Patrol Commander Colonel Glenn McNeil, our FEMA Federal Coordinating Officer Libby Turner is with us, Katie Webster, our meteorologist, is with us. Also, Commander Matt Moyer of the United States Coast Guard is on stage today, and Lee Williamson is providing our signing for the hearing impaired. We'll ask questions at the end, but first I'm going to ask Mike Sprayberry to give us a report. Mike?
Thank you, Governor. The State Emergency Operations Center remains activated at Level 1 for Hurricane Dorian response operations. Hurricane Dorian's impacts include heavy precipitation and winds, as well as a high storm surge along the coast, sounds, and rivers. Risk of flash flooding remains high east of I-95 from the South Carolina border to the Virginia border. Therefore, we urge the use of the North Carolina Emergency Management Flood Inundation Mapping and Alert Network, known as FIMAN, to ensure you are aware of potential flooding in your area. You can get there by logging in at fiman.nc.gov. That's fiman.nc.gov. You can sign up to be alerted by text or email by FIMAN when rivers or streams begin to rise near you. We continue to increase our flood fighting inventory of swiftwater rescue teams, National Guard, high water vehicle teams, urban search and rescue teams, ambulance strike teams, and aircraft. We will continue to experience our greatest impacts for Hurricane Dorian for the rest of today and tomorrow. We urge everyone in the impacted areas to stay in a safe place and off the roads. Always follow the instructions of your local officials. Our response assets are now fully staged and prepared for an aggressive response. We're also working on a detailed post-storm preliminary damage assessment plan, and several members of the State Disaster Recovery Task Force have already met at the State EOC and are working on a rapid transition from response to recovery. Our utility partners are well positioned for power restoration operations as soon as the storm passes. We have begun to draw resources from the FEMA Incident Support Base at Fort Bragg. We want to thank FEMA for being here. Our state medical and general population sheltering operations continue, and we can support pet sheltering as well. In closing, let me thank our local partners for all their hard work during this storm as they work together to protect their residents, and again to remind everyone to follow the instructions of their local officials. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, Mike. North Carolina Highway Patrol Commander Colonel Glenn McNeil.
Thank you, Governor. I would urge everyone, please heed the safety precautions that have been given by first responders, local and state leaders. First responders have already assisted drivers who have made poor decisions. As heavy rain across our state continues to impact our roadways will be diminished to be able to drive safely on them. Attempting to drive during the height of a storm should be completely avoided. Strong winds, heavy rain, and flooded roadways will lead to treacherous driving conditions throughout the day. Risk will intensify overnight. The ability to identify hazards will decrease due to limited visibility. As the storm moves north across the eastern portion of our state, it is anticipated that several roadways will become impassable due to flooding waters. With this in mind, under no circumstances should you attempt to travel around barricaded roads through standing or running water. Keep in mind just 6 inches of water is enough to knock a person down, and 1 foot of moving water can sweep a vehicle away. Downed trees and power lines, along with other roadway debris, will create a hazard for driving conditions. Residents are encouraged to stay updated by monitoring their local media outlets, radio programming, and information available to them on our Ready NC app. I would also like to emphasize, please do not call 911 or Star HP for any reason other than an emergency. For updated roadway conditions, please visit drivenc.gov. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel. And now Department of Transportation Chief Engineer Tim Lowe.
Thank you, Governor. As was alluded to earlier, conditions across the coastal areas have deteriorated over the last few hours. Currently, we have 17 current closures across that part of the state, 4 U.S. routes. They include US 117 around the Riceville Avenue and College Road in New Hanover, and also US 17 in Brunswick County, and 13 various SR routes mainly in New Hanover County. Also, the Harkers Island Drawbridge is closed at this time, as well as the Trent River Drawbridge as well. I can't stress enough how dynamic this situation is. These roads, we're having road closures as we're probably talking right now. That we're still getting closures in that just haven't been reported yet. As conditions allow, our crews will go out, assess these areas, also, mitigate some of the trees that are in the roadway, and start our plans for repairs. Assessments will include NCDOT personnel, our private engineering firm partners, as well as utilization of drones. Also, just wanted to mention our DMV offices. We have 35 license plate agencies that are closed, and also 19 driver's license offices that are closed at this time. And that concludes my report.
Okay, questions for anyone on the stage?
Governor, for Mr. Sprayberry, this morning you gave us some numbers, Mr. Sprayberry. I wondered if there's any update to those, the 23 swiftwater rescue, 48, all of that. Does that remain the same at this point?
No, it hasn't, and I think that we had, the 23 swiftwater rescue teams actually represented about 53 swiftwater boats, and I think that by the time we get all of them in, we'll have close to 70 boats. We had 16 aircraft this morning. We have 2 more Chinooks coming in from the state of Mississippi, 2 more 60s coming in from the state of Maryland, and 1 more, I shouldn't say 60, I should say Black Hawk, and coming in from Maryland, and 1 more coming in from Indiana.
So 16 to 21 on aircraft.
Roger.
Thank you.
Other questions? Yes, sir, Ed.
Governor, if I may, if your forecasters, you said you have a meteorologist, have you given any updates? When do you expect the worst tonight? What is the worst that you're expecting? You gave a few numbers this morning.
Sure.
Anything change in that?
I'll let Katie Webster, our meteorologist, address that.
Thank you for that question. So conditions across the southeast tonight will continue to deteriorate as we get to the overnight hours, say after sunset. Those conditions will worsen as you move northward across the coast. So say the Morehead City type area and the Outer Banks, those areas will begin to see their worst conditions beginning the early morning hours on Friday before sunrise. And then those hurricane type conditions will move northward as you go into the northern coast. And then finally in all areas we'll see conditions improve pretty rapidly on the backside of Dorian, beginning in the south tomorrow midday or mid-morning, and then through the afternoon in the northernmost coastal areas. So really, the worst conditions across the coast are expected overnight tonight into the first part of Friday, and then improving after that.
So most people should be out of danger by mid to late morning, maybe?
In the northern coast, that could last until the early to mid-afternoon tomorrow. And certainly we could see some increased winds on the backside of Dorian, as we've seen in other storms as well, especially along the Outer Banks and areas like that. But certainly as we go into tomorrow evening, conditions will really be improving. Thank you.
But we've got to remember that even when the sun is shining, rivers rise and flooding can continue to occur. So people have to continue to listen to forecasts and go to the Feynman site that Director Sprayberry mentioned to determine whether there is a potential for riverine flooding in your area. Yes. Can you get the mic? Can you get the mic? Oh, okay. We'll get you first. And then.
For people who are not in that evacuation zone, maybe they think that they are not in any danger. Can you give a message for those people who are more inland on how quickly conditions can change?
Sure. Flash flooding can occur in many places throughout central North Carolina. Some of the central North Carolina is going to get some tropical force winds that can knock down trees, that can make power go out. So we recommend that people stay indoors tonight in these affected areas. Watch your weather forecast, and if you're going to get some tropical storm winds in your area, it's best to stay home and off the roads. Listen for tornado watches and warnings, because that certainly can happen in inland areas, along with flash flooding. People need to be careful tonight, and we'd rather them stay home and hunker down. Wait a minute, right here. Yes, sir.
Tommy Goldsmith from North Carolina Health News. Mr. Sprayberry, have you had communication from adult care homes or nursing homes about evacuation?
Yes, sir. We actually have a licensed care facility representative sitting here in our state EOC with us. And most of the licensed care facilities felt like that their facilities were hardened enough to be able to withstand the event with backup power, although there have been several that have moved. And so that gets coordinated not only with them, but here at the state EOC.
About how many do you know?
I don't know right off the top of my head. Thanks.
We've got about 30 occupants in our medical shelter, right?
We do, sir.
About 30 occupants in the medical shelter in Clayton right now. Yes,
What is the best guess on tornado threat as far as how far west that is likely to extend, and then the hours of the most significant danger of that sort of cyclonic wind?
I'll throw that back to meteorologist Katie Webster.
Thank you, Governor, and that's a great question. So as you know, we've seen the tornadic activity increase through the morning hours, and we've had numerous warnings across the southeast. I believe that tornado watch has been reduced a little bit to include now portions of the eastern Piedmont and just central portions of the coastal plain. I believe that's in effect through tonight. But that threat for tornadoes will continue into the evening hours and probably into the first part of tomorrow. And certainly we do have that risk of seeing tornadoes into the first part of tomorrow as those outer bands of Dorian move northward. And our message to people would be to make sure you stay close to your NOAA weather radio, have multiple ways to receive warnings, and if a warning is issued for your area, to take cover pretty quickly, as tornadoes in tropical cyclones can spin up very quickly and with little notice. Thank you.
Other questions? Ed?
Yeah, one more, Governor, for Mr. Sprayberry. First of all, the Feynman site. Can you explain again, say what those letters stand for, and explain to people? I take it this is a good way for people in areas prone to flooding or in river areas to monitor when they might get floodwaters.
Right, the Flood Inundation Mapping and Alert Network, and that's fiman.nc.gov. We have a large number of river gauges, also down our estuaries as well, to where we collect that data. It goes into the website, and we're able to use predictive analysis and model when we think floods are going to be happening, give the depth of the flooding, the length of the flooding, the duration rather. And so it's good information. All you have to do is plug your address in, and it'll provide you with that information.
They helped us significantly with Florence after Matthew. More gauges were installed, and we're scheduled to have even more
Yes, sir.
gauges installed as well. Further questions? All right, we will probably reconvene for another hearing at about 10 o'clock or so tomorrow. Thanks very much.